Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network, a division of the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network. The following program broadcast is an original creation by the broadcast entity. Discussion within the following broadcast should be used for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice or consultation. Before considering application of any broadcast content in the following program, please consult your healthcare provider. If you feel you are having a medical emergency, please contact your local health services for immediate assistance. MS&Me Media and the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network do not guarantee or warrant the accuracy of information in the broadcast to follow. The Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network provisions broadcast services to program hosts. Information discussed in the broadcast does not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or goals of the network and are solely those of the show broadcast host. Should you wish to host a broadcast, please visit our website at msmemedia.com and submit a request to become a program host. We thank you for listening to the MS&Me Radio Network. Enjoy the show.
Hi, it's Mike, and welcome to A Life Less Traveled. What if I told you that I had figured out that I had MS before any doctor had even made that suggestion to me? What if I also told you that in that moment when I had learned of my diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, that there was a part of me, a sizable part of me, that actually felt relief? That's what we're going to talk about today on A Life Less Traveled. My name is Michael Wentink. I'm 40 years old and live in San Antonio, Texas with my wife and 2 kiddos. I've been diagnosed with MS now for about 10 years. I write about my journey living with this disease, and you can check out my stories at my website, mjwentink.com. That's mjwentink.com. My writings are also shared with the National MS Society and posted up on their blog at the msconnection.org. You can also see them at themighty.com. So I hope you check those out if you get a chance. If you happen to be on Twitter, you can find me at mjwentink. Again, that's mjwentink, Wentink. Send me a tweet. I'd love to connect. On Twitter, most Monday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'll be on it at ChatMS. That's hashtag ChatMS. A group of us gets together for about an hour to discuss a topic that's related to the MS community. And again, that's ChatMS, hashtag ChatMS, every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want to be clear that I wasn't taking a shot at the medical community when I was saying I figured out I had MS before any doctor told me. That doesn't make me incredibly smart. If anything, MS wasn't my first thought. But after having so many other options ruled out, it became my best one. All in, this was probably about a 10-year process, this road that led to my diagnosis of MS. Along the way, I was tested for tumors, brain tumors, cancer, any exact disease that you can think of, I was probably tested for it. There was probably many instances of me saying, oh, this is probably it, or oh no, this might be it here. And eventually the test results would come back and it would be nothing, or it'd be negative. And I was unremarkable. And so I never got that answer. But when I headed up to the Mayo Clinic in May of 2008, in the back of my head, it was screaming in the back of my head. It was saying MS. That seemed like the most likely solution or the most likely answer to me. And so when that neurologist told me that, I wasn't exactly surprised. And it sucks to hear that you have a disease or that you're sick. It's MS or anything, you know. Basically, a doctor's telling you that your body isn't working the way it's supposed to. So I'm not going to shy away from that and say that it was just all relief that I felt. But there was a part of me where this, again, was a 10-year process. And many times along the way, I was like, is this all in my head? What's going on? Why can't people figure this out? Yeah, they certainly are testing me for so many things, but there are no answers. And that it starts to dominate your life. You're going from one appointment to the next. You see a doctor. They put you in for a bunch of tests. You have the tests that are done, and then you go in for the results, and they tell you, sorry, nothing. And after a while, it wears on you mentally, emotionally, and you start thinking, maybe this is in my head, or worse, in my case, maybe I'm just weak. I can't handle this thing that we call life. I was, young in my career, and during the time period when it started, and then I started climbing the corporate ladder and got married, went to grad school. We were just beginning to start a family, and maybe that's why my body was breaking down. I just couldn't handle it. And so many steps along the way, when random symptoms would pop up out of nowhere, I would just rationalize, well, it's because I'm tired, or I'm just, stressed, or I'm working too hard. I couldn't think of a reason, and that those are the best answers that I could have. I certainly didn't want to consider that I would have something that was MS or something even potentially, like a cancer or a tumor. I didn't want to go down that road. So there was that relief when I heard that, where I was like, finally, an answer. I can put a name to what has been messing with me and causing all these appointments and all these, just unsure answers. I can finally say, this is it. And now I can get to living with MS. I remember having conversations with my, different doctors before that, where I would spell it out. Listen, if this is just my life, if these are just the things that I have to deal with, these random symptoms that I'm having, that's fine. I'll deal with them. I'll happily do it. I just want to make sure that nothing's being missed. That was the biggest worry in the back of my mind, that something was being missed. So if you take anything away from our conversation today, it's not that, I figured out I had MS before anyone else, and oh boy, did I feel incredible relief once I found out. It's that, you know your body better than anyone else. And if you feel like that, for those of you, if you're listening, if you have MS, or maybe you're in that world where maybe you can't figure out what is going on, push for that answer. It's not an easy road. It can be a quite miserable road. There's no sugarcoating that, but the worst part of this process was not knowing, because I had no idea what was going on. I'm going to take you on my journey that led to my diagnosis. And, along the way, I'll be pointing out a lot of different symptoms and issues that I had, but I don't want to just list off, I had this problem, that problem, because I think that what gets lost in that is the reality of these symptoms. Having hands that are, going numb, or, feet that are feeling all tingly and everything, that doesn't give the true scope of what's happening in your life. I'm getting up each day, and any person that's dealing with a disease like MS or anything out there, you're getting up each day, you're getting dressed for work, or maybe, if you're not working, if you have a family and you're wanting to be a father or a mother or a spouse, or whatever the reason is, you could be in high school and you're getting up and getting ready for school, and you're dealing with these things, not sure what's going on. But life goes on. It's not like the people I worked with stopped and were like, "Oh, hey, let's take a break. Mike's starting to feel nauseous for some strange reason. Let's just take a break, and everyone we'll meet back here in a couple of hours after Mike figures things out." That doesn't happen in life. Life keeps moving around you, and so these symptoms, it was a struggle to figure out what's going on and to make heads and tails of everything, because I just wanted to live my life. I wanted to be a husband. I wanted to be in my career. I wanted to eventually, start raising a family, and these things became roadblocks to just living what I thought was a quote unquote normal life. When I look back, I think sometimes about how when I was in college and I would go to the gym there at Virginia Tech and would be working out, and sometimes it would be before, sometimes it would be after. And I would notice that my feet, they would get very tingly, and my hands, for that matter, would get very, would have this like numbness, tingle feeling to it. And I didn't think a lot of it. I thought, maybe my shoes are just too tight. I need to get different shoes. This is what happens. You rationalize away, "Oh, this is why I feel this way," as opposed to saying, maybe there's something wrong. You say, well, maybe this is just the reasoning behind it here. I just need to get new shoes. And I look back, I'm like, was that the beginning of it? Was something going on then? I don't know, but I do. When I think back into my childhood, that's one of the early instances that I can remember of something strange just kind of occurring out of nowhere. Because the tingling wouldn't happen every time, but it would happen enough times for me to remember. After college, I was my first job there at Capital One, and I remember. I started getting these head pains out of nowhere. Just these shooting head pains. It was like I was being, lightning was coming into my head. It would just strike me. It would hurt so much. May I be in a meeting? Maybe I'd be talking with friends. And it's like I had to stop like mid-conversation, mid-sentence, and just like, because it would just, I'd almost like lose sight for a second because it would just be so painful. And I had no idea, it wasn't all the time. It was just, every once in a while, maybe not even once a week, but it was maybe like once every 10 days, every 2 weeks. It was enough where it's like, okay, this is kind of strange. It really shouldn't be like this. I think it shouldn't, because you only know what you know. You only know your body. It's not like, maybe other people have these things too. Maybe if you start your first job and it's just stress, it's causing these random shooting pains. But then what happened while these pains were going on, it was one winter there. We were living in the Washington, D.C. area, and it was after a storm, snowstorm. And it was sunny out, so things were starting to melt. And my girlfriend at the time, we were hanging out, and we were going to go get some food. And we were in the drive-thru at Popeyes. We were getting some chicken and their banana pudding, because I loved their banana pudding at Popeyes. And we were going through the drive-thru, and I don't know if I was paying or if I was getting the food when this happened, but I had my window down, was sticking my head out the window to get something. And from, the awning there, or the top of the building of Popeyes, that snow was melting. Well, there was like icicles melting as well too. And one of them, a rather large one, it was almost like a sheet of icicles. They came just crashing down, and they landed mostly on my head. And I mean, it hurt. It didn't, I wasn't like incredibly injured. I didn't start bleeding or anything like that, but it kind of rang my bell. And it bothered me enough where, first of all, I got a free bucket of fried chicken out of it. And I mean, you can't go wrong with that. But it bothered me enough where then the next few months when I would be getting these random shooting pains, I started doing the rationalization again where, well, I wonder if this is just related to that Popeyes episode. And where I was in line and, that happened, and maybe it was some kind of, concussion that occurred. So these were the lingering effects of it. And I was rationalizing. I was thinking maybe this is just the reason why. Well, these shooting pains, they went on long enough, and at a certain point, I don't know if she was my fiance or my newly led wife or still a girlfriend at the time, but Angela was like, this isn't normal. You shouldn't be having these things. And the last thing I wanted to do was go to the doctors because, like most people, I think, especially at that age that I was at, I didn't really like going to the doctor, didn't want to spend my time going to the doctor. And plus, I didn't want to hear that anything that could be wrong. That, of course, is like the other thing. It's like, I don't need to hear that something is wrong with me. I'll just deal with the pains. Well, eventually they became frequent enough and bad enough where I was like, okay, I gave in. And I was like, we'll go to the doctor. We'll check things out. And, went in there and met with my doctor and told her everything that was going on. And she's like, okay, well, I'm order some tests up for you and do some scans. And she's like, we're going to check you for a brain tumor. I was like, okay. I mean, this is why I didn't want to go to the doctor, but all right. I guess if I have something I want to figure it out, it's easy to say that now. And it's easy to say that knowing that I didn't have a brain tumor then, but it was hard to hear that then, but it was like, okay, that was kind of like one of the thoughts at the time. So thus began one of the first scans of many that I had. And they checked for things, and you go in, you wait for the results then, and the results came back and there was nothing there. Nothing that she saw. Eventually she was like, well, I think that what you have is something called cluster headaches. I think that was the name that she gave it. I'm not sure right now at the time. I was like, okay. I don't know exactly what cluster headaches are, but she was going to prescribe me some medicine, but I was like, no, I'm good. If I just have headaches, I'll just deal with them. It's not that big of a deal. It wasn't frequent. It was enough where it was bothersome, but it wasn't like it was happening every day. So, life went on. These shooting pains, I just was like, whatever. Well, around that time, I started noticing that when I ate certain kinds of foods and drank certain kinds of drinks, I would just get these incredible stomach pains. When it would be like rich meals, you go out and you get like the pasta with like that rich sauce, the creamy sauce, or if I get like a really dark beer or something like that, where it's kind of thick, and it's just like, I would, at the end of the night, I'd literally be just like curled up in the fetal position in just so much pain. Things like eating donuts, something like that. It's just like, it would give me so much pain where I just stopped eating them. I mean, all stuff like that. I started drinking just light beer, I was at the age where I remember like my friends making fun of me because, Mike can, handle real beer, he's getting his, fruity beer, his light beer and stuff like that. But that was just better for my stomach. I didn't know why it was happening. And with the meals, I ate very bland stuff and just, kept it very simple because I didn't want to feel these pains. Now, the funny thing is that these stomach pains that I was getting, they were not MS related. They're related to something else that I eventually discovered at the Mayo Clinic. But these stomach pains, they led to my diagnosis. They were a large part of the reason that I ended up at the Mayo Clinic and found out that I had MS. Maybe there would have been another path that I would have taken to get that answer. But these stomach pains are what led to that. And we'll get back to that in a little bit. But These are just stuff where it's like it was happening to me, but I was just like, well, I'm getting older. Maybe I shouldn't be eating this stuff anymore anyways. And that's what my body's telling me. Well, probably into our first year or two of marriage, I started noticing that my energy level was very low, incredibly low. And that was compared to how it had always been. And, I remember growing up, my dad, he would, on the weekends, he'd take my mom shopping. They would just go shopping all the time. He'd take her to a mall. He'd sit on a bench and read a book. And my mom would go shopping. I mean, he was happy as he can be reading his book, and she was in heaven going around just shopping. She'd probably buy things maybe once out of every 10 trips to the mall, but that's what she enjoyed doing. And I always thought that was, a pretty cool thing. And maybe it's because I saw that a lot, because my mom would take me shopping too. It wasn't just, my dad. And maybe I was just around it so much where it really didn't ever bother me that much going shopping and doing stuff like that. And we got married. And eventually we moved to Texas and, buy a house. And there's a lot of shopping to do in terms of things for the house and stuff like that. And so we'd be going and running these errands, and I started calling it, my wife, I'd call it that she'd have us doing, I called it the move around. And I was just trying to live through the move around because it would just be so much getting up and going to the store to look for a couch or look for a chair or look for paint or something like that. And I remember I'd just tell her that it's like, Angela, I'm fading. I'm just running out of energy. I don't have that energy. But, I attributed that to not necessarily getting older, but I was just busy with work, wasn't getting good enough sleep. But, I knew that this was a different kind of like lacking energy. This wasn't like the regular, I'm tired or I stayed up too late. This was like some, like little leprechaun was coming in and just like during the middle of the night, just draining every ounce of energy out of my body. And then I'd wake up in the morning. It's just, I just feel just so low all the time. Well, as I said, I was going to grad school around that time, and something weird started happening again then. I started just sweating during the middle of the night. No reasons why. From head to toe, just covered in sweat. And it was just like mystifying to me how this would happen. Whereas like sometimes it would happen multiple times during the night. I would completely change my clothes. We would have to wash our sheets so often because of all this sweating that was going on. And again, it rationalized it away. Well, maybe this was just related to something else. I didn't know why this could be. And it turned out that the sweating probably wasn't related to the MS at all. But that, again, led to eventually another doctor's appointment and more being tested for random things, exotic diseases. And nothing occurred. Nothing came of it. The ball really didn't get rolling until maybe once I got closer and was going to grad school, I noticed things at work. We would play basketball at work there sometimes, and I would be out there in the court, and I would just fall down so easily. And it was just like, I was never an Olympic athlete, and I'll be clear about that. But I mean, come on, this was ridiculous. I had no coordination. I'd be playing and just like falling down. I played racquetball at the time too, and always loved racquetball. And again, it just would be falling down out of nowhere. And it was just kind of bizarre to me that this was occurring. And then I started falling downstairs, falling down and falling up on a couple of occasions. I mean, at work, they had this in my group there. They had this running joke where it's like, hey, if you're, walking, with Mike and everything, it's like, don't walk in front of him down the stairs. He'll fall on you. It was, it didn't happen all the time, but, it happened enough. You don't really, need it to happen too many times to be like, okay, this is kind of a little strange. But again, I was like, I'm going to grad school. I'm working super hard. This is just a lot of stuff is going on. That's why this stuff is occurring. Well, eventually in 2007, one of my good friends from Virginia, he came and visited with his wife. They had a relative newborn, just as we did. Our son was maybe around 7 months old, and their son was just a little bit older than that. And they came and visited, and we all went out to dinner as a couple. The kiddos were with a babysitter, and we had a nice dinner. And we came back from that dinner, and the wives went to sleep upstairs, and my friend Mark and I, we just hung out and we started talking. And he had noticed that. I was like, hey, I see you have Grey Goose there. And I was like, yeah, we do. I don't even know why I have had that bottle of Grey Goose. And it's not like I was drinking vodka regularly, or Grey Goose for that matter. It was probably a present maybe. He's like, you know what I like? I like to just have it on ice. I was like, really? I've never had Grey Goose on ice. He's like, oh yeah, you got to try that. I was like, all right. So we each poured ourselves a glass of it. Our wives are asleep upstairs. The kiddos are already asleep, of course. And we're just hanging out talking. And I started getting the shooting pains in my stomach. And it was miserable. I was down on the ground, curled up, and I was thinking in my head, oh man, Mark's going to think that I can't handle drinking vodka on ice, on the rocks. I just can't handle it. But it was, I didn't know what was happening to me. I was getting these pains up and down my arms. At a certain point, I told Mark, I was like, you got to go wake up my wife. You got to go wake up Angela. I think I got to go to the hospital. And so, he goes upstairs and gets Angela, and she comes downstairs. And I was like, I don't know if I'm having a heart attack, a stroke. I don't know what is going on. And so we headed out to the hospital, and we eventually were seen by, a doctor there, and he determined that it was just his best thought at the time, that I had ulcerative colitis. And I was like, okay, I'm not really sure what all that is, but maybe, I guess that's the reason why I was having these incredible pains. And so I actually, I was staying there at the hospital, and honestly, I just wanted to get back home. And so that was really important to me, to get back home. Like, our son was there. They were very kind. They watched our friends, Mark and Melissa, they watched our kiddo, and they're there for us. But it's just like, I just wanted to get out of the hospital and get back home. And the doctor they kind of wanted to see me a little bit longer, but I was like, if I have ulcerative colitis, I'll figure out what this means. I don't know, maybe there's something I could just take a pill for it. Maybe, again, maybe this explains why I've always had these weird pains and stuff when I eat certain foods. And so, we went back home, and I eventually was discharged from the hospital, and we were there, and I went to work that Monday. And at work, the pain started happening again. I couldn't even breathe. It was so bad. And I called my wife, and I was like, I'm sorry, but we got to go back. And so back to the emergency room we went, and we were admitted quickly into the hospital there. And this time my stay was not going to be as short. And in this time, I was going to get a different kind of diagnosis. And this diagnosis eventually led me down the road to the Mayo Clinic in learning that I had multiple sclerosis. I hope you tune in for part 2 of this journey of mine to learn that I have MS. Again, you can check out my writings at mjwentink.com, mjwentink, WENTINK.com. And please look me up on Twitter at mjwentink. I've enjoyed our conversation today, and I look forward to telling you the rest of my story about how I eventually ended up being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Thank you. Have an awesome day.